right, strap yourselves in, because today we're going deep, deep into Superman. The movie, the one from 1978. Yeah, the classic. And look, you probably already love it. I get it. But we're going behind the scenes, kind of peeling back the curtain with this awesome critique to figure out why it wasn't just like a fun superhero flick, but why it actually changed how movies got made. The whole game, yeah.
You're totally right. I mean, think about it. Back in the 70s, nobody, and I mean nobody, knew if a big budget, I'm talking big budget superhero movie would even work. Like, could you make people actually believe a man could fly and do it without being totally cheesy? That was a huge risk. Huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, right? This critique actually talks about how the first script was over 500 pages long. 100. That's longer than books I've read.
It's insane, right? And the director, Richard Donner, he knew he had to like cut it down, get it focused, and really make this, pretty crazy story feel real. He even had a word for it, verisimilitude. Basically, how do you make something unbelievable believable,
So even though we've got aliens and superpowers and all that, it still feels like grounded.
Exactly. And on top of that, right, they had this budget like $55 million. Nobody was spending that kind of money back then. They even thought, hey, let's film Superman and I Superman 2 back to back. That's how big they were thinking.
Whoa, hold up. A double feature right out of gate. Okay, so we got this massive script, insane budget, and they want to make Superman feel real. What else makes this movie, like, special?
So one thing that really grabs you is the visuals, the world they built, Krypton, Superman's home planet, looked like nothing you'd ever seen in a movie before. All these crystals and futuristic stuff. It was wild.
Krypton was so cool. I loved it. And you know what? This critique said it was inspired by how they draw kryptonite in the comics, all those glowing green crystals. It's like they snuck in a little visual Easter egg or something.
Totally. It shows how much thought went into everything, every little detail. And get this, it wasn't all fancy CGI and computers. They used tons of real sets and miniatures. Then they blended that with some, for the time, cutting-edge special effects. Pretty amazing what they pulled off. I mean, this was the 70s, remember?
Now, come on, we can't talk Superman without talking Christopher Reeve. He was Superman.
Reeve. Yeah, perfect casting. He brought this, I don't know, like sincerity to Superman. Some of the bigger names they considered, like Robert Redford, maybe not so much.
It's funny, right? They were looking at Robert Redford, Clint Eastwood, even Paul Newman. But Reeve, he could be Superman and Clark Kent, and you felt like they were different people.
And he did it without even trying,
Yeah.
There's the scene, it's in Lois's apartment. He goes from Clark to Superman just like that. No effects, nothing. Just how he stands, his voice, the way he holds his glasses. It's brilliant acting.
Oh, man. Got to rewatch that. Okay, another casting home run. Marlon Brando as Jor-El. This guy was like Hollywood royalty even back then.
Brando, yeah, he gave the movie some serious weight for sure. But the critique mentions he was kind of tough to work with. Like, he wouldn't memorize his lines. He'd read them off cue cards. And get this, he wanted Jor-El to look like a bagel.
A bagel? Wait, seriously?
Yeah, thought it'd be otherworldly or something. But hey, even with all that, his performance, it's unforgettable. That last message to baby Kal-El, heartbreaking. Gives the movie, like, real depth, which you don't always get in superhero movies,
Yeah. And then there's Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. The critique says he was a totally different Luthor than in the comics.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's not some evil mastermind. He's more like, I don't know, a charming schemer, Always got some plan cooking. Almost a Bond villain, but funnier.
Yeah. And he's got those gooky henchmen, Otis and Miss Teschmacher.
Right. Oh, and we got to mention Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. Smart, witty, not afraid of anything. Everything Lois should be. Her and Reeve, they had great chemistry, and she set the bar for every Lois that came after.
All right, so we've got the epic production, the casting, which is perfect. But before we get into all the special effects, which, come on, change the game, we got to talk about John Williams' score. I mean, that Superman theme, just like pure heroism, pure hope, just blasted through music.
No argument there. John Williams, he just elevates everything.
Yeah.
Krypton, the can you read my mind scene, even just Superman flying. You can't imagine this movie without it.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what went into making Superman, like all the behind-the-scenes stuff. But now I want to know, why does any of this matter? I mean, Superman, the movie, it's not just about cool effects and John Williams, right?
Not at all. It's a film, I think, full of themes that, they still really hit home today, maybe even more than they did back in 78. Remember what we said, post-Watergate, Vietnam? There's a lot of, darkness around. Yeah.
A lot of cynicism.
So Superman shows up, the symbol of hope. This guy's all about truth. He's kind of the opposite of that. Yeah, that's it. He's like the perfect American ideal truth, justice, the American way, but it doesn't feel like fake or forced. It just works.
And there's that whole, like, Superman as a messiah thing too, right?
Right.
Sent from another planet to save everyone. Adds a whole other level to the story, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's like this ancient myth kind of thing. We all want a savior, right? Someone to come fix everything. But what's really cool is they don't shy away from Superman's, weaknesses.
Yeah.
He's not perfect.
You're talking about Clark Kent, right? Like, when his dad dies, that's a huge moment in the film.
Huge. It shows that even Superman, he feels loss, he grieves, he's not untouchable emotionally. And that makes him, I don't know, more like us, more human.
Makes you think, right? Even heroes have to deal with that stuff.
Absolutely. And it makes his choice, right? To use his powers for good, to protect people, makes it mean more. He's not doing it because he has to. He's doing it because he gets it. He understands how precious life is.
And that kind of brings us back to that flying scene.
Yeah.
The one with Lois Lane, the "Can you read my mind" scene.
Hmm.
Seems like people either love it or hate it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I kind of like it. Yeah, it's a little cheesy. I get it. But it's got that feeling of wonder that Superman's all about, like a little fairy tale moment in this giant superhero movie.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely gets people talking. Maybe that's part of why it's such a good movie,
Mhm.
It makes you think, makes you feel something, even argue about it.
Exactly. It doesn't tell you what to think. It lets you figure it out yourself, find your own meaning.
So we talked about the themes, how it makes you feel. But Superman, it's also considered super important for the whole superhero genre.
Yeah.
How did it change the movies we see now?
Well, for one, it proved that a comic book movie, it could be a huge hit. It brought in a ton of people, and it did that by taking the story seriously, like really respecting it.
Instead of just being silly and campy, they went for something like more real, something we could connect with.
Right. They showed that you could have all the action, the crazy stuff, but also like heart, some laughs, even some deep thoughts. That opened the door for the smarter superhero movies we see now, the ones that really dig into the characters.
So Superman, the movie, it wasn't just about changing special effects. It was about changing how you tell a superhero story.
Yeah, 100%. It proved that these movies, they could be more than just like popcorn flicks. They could be art, something that makes you think about, what it means to be human. And that, I think, is still inspiring filmmakers today.
Now, before we move on, I got to ask about Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
We talked about how perfect he was as Superman, but this critique asks a really interesting question. How would people see his Superman today?
That's a tough one. I mean, we're used to our superheroes being, dark, brooding, all that. Would Reeves, optimism, his hopefulness, would that even work anymore?
Or maybe, since things feel kind of dark right now, maybe that's exactly what we need.
Maybe. Makes you think, right? Maybe Superman, the movie, is telling us that hope, it never really goes out of style. It's something we can always choose to believe in.
I like that. Makes you really appreciate Reeve's performance, doesn't it? He brought this realness, this heart to Superman that, I don't know, it just goes beyond any one time period.
And it shows how powerful this film still is, how it keeps making us think and talk about it.
All right, well, on that note, let's take a quick break, and then we'll wrap up our deep dive into Superman, the movie, with some final thoughts and, what we learned. Okay, so we've pretty much flown through all the cool stuff about Superman, the movie, right? The making of it, the actors, those awesome special effects, and even how it, makes you think about things even today. But before we call it a wrap, is there anything else our listeners should know? Anything we missed?
Going through this critique, what really hit me was how much love and attention went into every single part of this film, from the sets to the music, even how they told the story. It's like they cared about each piece.
It's like they knew right from the start they were making something big, something that people would still be watching, forever.
I think they did. And you can feel that, in every scene of the movie, that dedication.
It's making me want to watch it again right now, just to see all those things we talked about.
That's what a great movie does, right? It sticks with you. You want to go back, see it again, and find, new things you missed before.
Well, I think we've done it. We unpacked Superman, the movie, and why it's so magical. It's a movie that still inspires people, entertains them, and makes you think about important stuff. Any last words of wisdom for our listeners before we sign off?
If you haven't seen Superman in a while, or maybe never even seen it, I'd say check it out. See it with fresh eyes. Look for those details we talked about, the themes, how it makes you feel. And hey, maybe just maybe you'll find that hope again, that feeling that good things can happen even when things are tough. And you'll see why this movie, it's a classic, a real classic.
That's a perfect way to put it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Superman, the movie. We ever wonder what goes on behind the scenes of your favorite movies?
Yeah, the stuff we never really think about.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into Superman, the movie,
The one from 1978.
Yeah, the classic one, the one that made us all believe a man could fly. And we're going to be pulling some really cool stories from an article called 5 Interesting Facts About Superman, the Movie.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, I think you're going to be surprised by some of these.
Let's hear them.
All right, so first of all, can you imagine Paul Newman as Superman?
Okay.
I mean, can you picture that? He was actually offered the role.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
I guess I could sort of see it.
And get this, he was also offered the roles of Lex Luthor
Whoa.
and Jor-El.
So they offered him like all the main parts?
No, it's crazy.
What would he have picked?
Right. He ended up turning them all down.
Wow.
But I mean, can you imagine what the movie would have been like if he had played any of those roles?
Yeah, that's wild. I think he would have been a really interesting Lex Luthor.
Yeah. Kind of a different take on it than what we got.
Yeah, for sure.
Like maybe he could have been a little more charming,
Right. Less like overtly evil and more
He's
like...
a little more roguish and cunning.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, but speaking of Superman, let's talk about the man who actually did become Superman.
Oh, you mean Christopher Reeve?
Yeah, Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
He wasn't just acting the part of Superman. He was really dedicated to the role.
Yeah, I've heard that.
He even used his experience as a hang glider to help him with those flying scenes.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this was way before CGI was a thing, so they were doing a lot of practical effects.
Right, with wires and stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
So Reeves' experience with hang gliding really helped him to understand how to move and balance in the air.
Yeah, so it looked more natural.
Yeah, and it really did. I mean, those flying scenes are just so iconic.
They really are. It's hard to imagine anyone else doing it.
Right, and his willingness to do his own stunts, too.
Yeah, he really went above and beyond.
Totally. Okay, speaking of iconicers, we can't forget about Marlon Brando's Jor-El.
Oh, yeah, he was amazing.
I know, right? He only had like 12 minutes of screen time.
What, really?
Yeah, just 12 minutes. But he was paid $3.7 million for it.
No way, for just 12 minutes.
No, it's insane if you do the math. That's like...
Hold on, let me get my calculator.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like over $300,000 per minute of screen time.
Whoa, that's a lot of money.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It just shows you how much star power Brando had back then.
Yeah, he was a huge deal.
Definitely studios were willing to pay anything to get him in their movies.
Do you think just having his name attached to the movie was enough to make it a success?
I mean, it probably helped a lot, right?
Yeah, I bet people who might not have even been interested in a superhero movie would go see it just because Marlon Brando was in it.
That's true. Okay, now get this. Imagine Lois Lane and Superman flying through the air,
Yeah.
and suddenly Margot Kidder starts singing.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the romantic scene where they're flying,
Oh, yeah, with the song Can You Read My Mind?
Right, that was originally supposed to be a vocal piece.
Oh, wow. So Lois Lane was going to sing it?
Yeah, there's actually rumor that Margot Kidder did record a version of the song, but they decided not to use it.
Oh, man, I wonder what that sounded like.
Right, what a lost treasure.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the instrumental version is pretty great, too.
Yeah, it's really iconic.
It totally fits the scene.
Oh.
Okay, but so one more bit of behind-the-scenes drama we have to talk about.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so remember the director Richard Donner?
Yeah.
Well, he actually left the project before Superman 2 was finished.
Really? Why?
He had some disagreements with the producers about the direction of the sequel and stuff like the budget.
Oh, so it wasn't just a simple director swap.
No, it was more complicated than that.
Just too bad.
Yeah, it is. But here's the interesting part. Years later, they released something called the Donner Cut of Superman 2.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's basically a version of the movie that's more in line with Donner's original vision.
Wow. So you can really see how those behind-the-scenes issues affected the movie.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
So there are 2 completely different versions of Superman 2 out there.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot about Superman, the movie, today.
Me too. It's amazing how many interesting stories there are behind the scenes of even the most classic films.
Yeah, it really shows you that movie making is a really collaborative process.
Yeah. A lot of people have to come together to make it all work.
Totally. So what was the most surprising thing you learned today?
For me, it was the fact that Marlon Brando only had 12 minutes of screen time
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
and that he got paid so much for it.
I know, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What about you? What surprised you the most?
I think the Paul Newman thing,
Yeah,
that's wild to imagine him as Superman or Lex Luthor.
I know, right? Well, if you're a Superman fan like we are, I definitely recommend checking out the Donner cut of Superman 2.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how different the movie could have been.
All right, you can really see the impact of all those behind-the-scenes decisions. So that's it for our deep dive into Superman, the movie. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of movies.
Bye, everyone.